is going on, Jets Nation? Welcome back to Jets Media. I am joined by a special guest. You guys know him very well, Mr. Matt O'Leary. Wow. Never a dull day, Matt. Never a dull day. I mean,
Well,
what are we going to be talking about today? Dude,
yeah,
first
you
of
know, you
all,
can't just have. Sorry, man.
no,
I
go
didn't mean
for it.
to cut you off there. I was just gonna say you can never just have a random Wednesday in January. It's got to be
Right?
a bombshell report drops.
I told you right before the show started. I texted Matt, hey, can you come on the channel tomorrow around 5? And I was planning this whole, NFL draft talk off season, like Senior Bowl, where the Jets going. Nope, that's not what we're talking about, Matt. We're not talking about no Senior Bowl. We're not talking about any of the NFL draft because there was a huge article that came out that you guys all know by now. I'm a little late to the party. This is my first time making any content on this report, and I'm glad to have a great friend of mine, Matt O'Leary, who already made a video breaking down this article. If you guys did not check out the article, definitely do so. It's via The Athletic, and it unleashed a lot of things about the New York Jets organization, more in particularly Robert Saleh. And of course, there's other news that's different from the Robert Saleh article is Rex Hogan, the assistant GM, has been let go, or they mutually agreed to part ways. So let's start off with Rex Hogan, Matt, and then we'll get deeper into the article, get into the meat and potatoes, if you will. And guys, don't forget to hit that like button on your way into the show. We appreciate it. Rex Hogan, I mean, that definitely caught me off guard. What's your overall thoughts and reactions to Rex Hogan all of a sudden just walking? Because in my opinion, Rex Hogan was a guy that I looked at was a very valuable piece to this front office. He was Joe Douglas's right-hand man. He is well-respected around the NFL. And I thought he was pretty good in his job with Douglas. But then you really take a step back and you look at what the Jets have done in terms of the scouting department, in terms of the NFL draft, outside of the 2022 draft, his resume is not as great as you might think. So what's your overall thoughts and reactions to Rex Hogan being let go as the assistant GM?
Yeah, I was surprised by that news. I didn't think they would make any sort of change. And as you mentioned, it's someone that Joe Douglas is incredibly close with. So you would figure that it's someone who's going to stick around with him, someone who maybe could have been a GM down the line. But I think with how things went last year, it's not crazy surprising, I guess, that they're going to move on from one of their front office guys. I think that someone had to take it, not someone, and it's only Rex Hogan taking a fall, but we've seen some changes, some shake up to the coaching staff. Now we're seeing a shake up and a change to the front office. So I think they're just shuffling things around a little bit for 2024 to see if they could do anything different this go around and hopefully not make the same mistakes that they did a year ago.
And do you think that they're going to go after there and look for an assistant GM right away? Like, where do you think the next step is to bring in someone next to Joe Douglas? Because we're all thinking that the additions the Jets need is offensive coaching staff. And now we have a hole in the front office. So where do you think the Jets go from here with that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if they're going to rush to fill that role. It might be something that, over the next few months, they interview some candidates and then they're able to go that way and try to, on the fly add someone again. Like, I don't think there's a deadline where it's like, oh, by free agency, which is, 6 weeks away now at this point, that it's got to be fixed. Yeah, it's not ideal, but they could figure something out.
And do you think that's a big hit on just the overall perspective and the overall just views of the Jets front office? Because in my opinion, this makes me feel a little less confident of the front office, right? I mean, these past few years, I'm believing in Joe Douglas, but of course, this past offseason, he really did not do anything besides build around Aaron Rodgers. And we also saw from the report of The Athletic that he's not even the GM. He's the assistant GM next to Aaron Rodgers, apparently. So, I mean, we can go right into this report, Matt. I mean, via The Athletic, there's so many things to unpack, so many different questions that we have to talk about and break down together. But let's go into that since we're on the topic of Joe Douglas. What's your thoughts of hearing that, according to an AFC source, an AFC GM, who knows if it's true or not, that Aaron Rodgers is the GM and Joe Douglas is the assistant GM, basically insinuating that Aaron Rodgers has the final say. And it makes sense when you just look back and you're like, oh, wait, it does make sense because the Jets, who do they add? Oh, Allen Lazard, Turner, Cobb, you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, that does make sense because they did bring in all the Aaron Rodgers buddies. So what's your thoughts of that part of the article, calling Joe Douglas the assistant GM?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand where that's coming from, right? Optics wise, when Nathaniel Hackett comes over, and then you also get, as you mentioned, Billy Turner and Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Adrian Amos. It was like Packers East over here for a little bit with the New York Jets, and they signed Dalvin Cook, which is someone that it seemed like Aaron Rodgers was asking for, or um, I think it's not the craziest thing to say. I think it's maybe a little bit on the harsh side. I would think that Douglas has, a final say in this, but they heavily value what Aaron Rodgers thinks and what he wants. So that might have been a little bit strong hyperbole from the AFC scout, but I get where that's coming from. And optics wise, some of the things they did over the past year, you could see why someone would draw that conclusion.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that really needs to be knit in the butt immediately in terms of the structure of the entire organization, starting with Woody Johnson. And Woody Johnson's name was also brought up a lot in this article. So, folks, we're going to get deeper into the article. If you're just tuning into the show, don't forget to do us a favor by simply hitting the like button and also subscribing to the channel. Mr. Matt O'Leary is live with us here on Jets Media. His channel is down below in the description. If you're not already subscribed to Matt, which, come on now, if you're not already subscribed to Matt, what are you doing? I mean, to be being honest with ourselves here. But, Matt, Woody Johnson, another part about this article that I have to ask you about that I thought was extremely interesting. Apparently, Woody Johnson is listening to us. Okay. So everything we're saying to Woody Johnson, he's actually listening, and he's showing it to the coach in Robert Saleh. Now, that explains why we're getting new jerseys, apparently, because I think that's like 80% of what Jets fans have been saying to Woody Johnson on X for the past year since we changed the jerseys in the first place. But apparently, Woody Johnson is going to Robert Saleh and voicing our frustrations as a fan base. And he's like, hey, this fan on Twitter said that you should fix the offense this way. And he's showing it to Saleh. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going, but that's basically what we saw on the report. So what's your overall thoughts of Woody Johnson actually being active on Twitter? We see him active, but like I always thought it was like an admin or like someone he hired. Like I don't know how much Woody Johnson is actually on Twitter, but it seems like it really is him. Even if he still has someone working for him, making some tweets, it does feel like he really listens to us fan base, and we have a voice in this entire organization.
Yeah, I mean, I wanna believe that Robert Saleh is, every day in their meeting that Woody Johnson's going up to Robert Saleh and like, hey, this guy, you got to see him. This guy on Twitter, Green Bean, great ideas. He's saying we got to go 2 tight ends and like all kinds of different stuff like that. I want to live in a world where that's the reality. But it was funny. I got some pushback on that's ridiculous. There's no way that Woody Johnson's actually on Twitter and cares about what the Jet fans are saying. He has better things to do, which I just don't get. Like, have you not followed along with Woody? That's not to say that he doesn't have a team or an intern or whatever running his Twitter account on the day to day. But if you think that Woody Johnson's not scrolling and keeping tabs on what people are saying, I mean, this guy cares so much about what people are saying about the Jets. He's trying to get the Jets in the news in a positive way all the time, it feels like. So to me, I think it's definite that he's listening, and he showed it. There's a perfect example earlier. I forget which week it was, but the Jets announced they were going to wear either the white with the green pants or the white with the white pants. And then Breece Hall had a tweet and some Jet fans jumped on it. And then guess what? They switched to white and with the black. And it's like, well, obviously, like you're dialed in. That was your example. That's a perfect example of it. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Richie. Who knows? Maybe Woody's watching right now.
That was really weird. Finish with Woody. Are you watching? Is he watching right now? Is it maybe one of these people in the chat that we just don't know? Rich, are you actually Rich, or are you Woody Johnson? Come on, Rich. Come to the surface. We know you're Woody Johnson. There has to be Woody lurking somewhere. I mean, listen, he definitely cares. And that's the one thing about Woody I always admired by him, but it doesn't translate to any winning success and winning at all. So that's that. Now, there's other parts of the article that we have to unpack. I mean, listen, there's so much to this article. It feels like it's 10,000 pounds, and we've gotten through like barely 1% of it so far. Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers' relationship maybe wasn't as big and as lovey-dovey as we initially thought. Apparently, that relationship went south after his injury. So, what's your thoughts of the whole idea that Aaron Rodgers wasn't in contact with Zach when he was in California and when he came back? That whole notion that, Aaron Rodgers tried to talk to Zach Wilson when he tried to not play again and he was reluctant to play. So, what's your thoughts about the whole dynamic of A-Rod and Zach Wilson up until this point? Or does it even matter because Zach Wilson is walking, or we're not walking, but will be getting traded pretty soon?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure it matters, right? Like it's kind of funny because if you talked about, the potential in season, if you talked about the potential of Aaron Rodgers getting traded, or excuse me, not Aaron Rodgers, but Zach Wilson getting traded, the response usually was, well, Aaron Rodgers loves Zach Wilson. There's no way that he's actually going to get traded. And I didn't think that really made a whole lot of sense or was something that added up. I thought, it was a possibility that they could do something like, move on from him at the end of the year if things went south. And that's where I think this is going. I think it is trending south, unfortunately, and that they are going to move on from him. But it's to me, it's not crazy surprising, right? Like Aaron Rodgers is focusing on his rehab now. Like, I don't know if he necessarily has to be talking to Zach Wilson every single day. I don't think he went like and ghosted Zach Wilson, but I just don't think it was the same relationship that they might have had when he was here and when, they were practicing together in training camp.
Yeah, and like when you read this article, are you reading it with a mindset of everything's 100% factual, or do you still have that thing in the back of your head that let's take this all with a grain of salt? Because me and you both know we've been in the game long enough that there are some articles that come out that just simply are not true and they're pure speculation. I do feel like this article does have some reliable sources and it kind of does feel like it's true just from the perspective that Saleh was pissed off with people leaking stuff. And it sounds like the leaks are actually leaking some like actual information here. So how much should we take this report on the surface level as it being legit?
I think you have to take a good amount of this as being legit. I don't know what these guys gain from, falsifying it. And I think you have to look a little bit deeper too at this story where there's a lot of focus on ownership. There's a lot of focus on the coaching staff, but I don't know if I noticed any mention of the front office. So I looked at this as the front office trying to save face a little bit because there's a little bit more heat with the team not winning this year. And it feels like people not necessarily turned on Joe Douglas, but there's just been more criticism of him now than there were in years gone by, where it was, pretty much exclusively Robert Saleh getting criticized in his first couple of years. But I think the front office was doing a little bit of damage control because it felt like a lot of these stories had a spin that it was putting the blame on the coaching staff rather than the actual, guys adding the players in the front office.
Yeah, man. And speaking of the coaching staff, it's so hard to read this article and not come away of just being completely flabbergasted of Robert Saleh as a head coach, Matt. I mean, all we saw from this article was he was making excuses and he was saying we're not doing anything without Aaron Rodgers. He was referencing other coaches around the NFL that's had injuries to their star quarterbacks as substance. Like, see, if they can do it, why can't I? And like, he was very upset about the report of Zach Wilson being reluctant to play to the point where, if you guys did not read the article, basically what Saleh did, apparently, according to the article, is in a meeting, he asked the rat to come rat themselves out. Hey, which one of you guys leaked this to the media? And if you admit to it now, you will not get in trouble. And then some people, I guess, did not admit it. And then he threatened to take their phones away to figure it all out. And people were kind of appalled that Saleh was so obsessed over that specific report. And he started to care a lot about the outside noise. So what's your reaction to that, Matt? Like, it's really, I'm like losing hope in this coach by the day, by the second, the more I read into this. Like, that is not a good look.
No, it's not. I think some of the excuses that he was putting out there this year, like they talked about injuries, the line, the quarterback. That was talked about a lot, but it feels like anyway, in his mind, like the defense did his job or did their job, and they're really being held back by the offense. But you can't think that way as a head coach. That's how defensive coordinators think. You have to be more involved with this offense, and you have to take a bigger role with it to get it going in the right direction. And it doesn't. It didn't look good for Robert Saleh. It looked like he was, again, a guy trying to make a lot of excuses, and that story clearly rubbed him the wrong way. And I don't know if he handled that right. It's just the whole thing's a mess, Richie.
And you know what just came to my mind? That story got Salah pissed off. What is he thinking right now? Like, this story is even worse. It's basically like doubling I can't imagine. It is the offseason, so he has no one to talk to because they're not in the building together. But if that story about, Zach Wilson pissed him off, and by the way, it's from the same source, Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt. If you guys remember, The Athletic was the one to report about Zach Wilson's reluctance to play. So what is Robert Saleh doing now? So how does Saleh save face? I think we all know that Saleh going into this season, it's like a make or break year for him. Like, the obvious is we need offensive help, right? And I think you mentioned it well there. He's coaching this team like he's the defensive coordinator, and you want to give him credit because he built the best defense in football objectively. Top 5 guaranteed, number 1 in a lot of different categories. I don't need to go out there and rave about the defense. You guys know how good or how great, how elite the New York Jets defense is. But it's so hard to praise the man who built that defense, who's responsible for the defense, when the other side of the ball is so much of a mess. And you said it, he's not the defensive coordinator. You are the head coach. You need to be plugged in on all 3 phases of the ball. And we still have Nathaniel Hackett. And we did not get rid of him. We're bringing in some new coaches, right? We brought Sean Jefferson back, who was formerly the Jets wide receiver coach a few years back. Now he is the new wide receivers coach this season, replacing our previous one, which I find extremely interesting, right? So what does Robert Saleh need to do in this offseason to really get this team mentally prepared? Because I feel like some people are starting to question him even internally within their own building.
Yeah, it feels that way, right? Like that's definitely something that I took away from this was it feels like they're starting to question him a little bit. But you know what helps? Winning. Winning cures all. So they better hope that Aaron Rodgers comes back and plays like he did in Green Bay before the injury and before his injury this year. Because a great quarterback can hide some deficiencies. And, it's time for this regime and this staff and this team to win football games. As we know, they went 7-10. One of the things that pissed me off early in that article was when they said the goal switched to winning 7 games. That felt like that would make them safe for 2024. And to me, why that got me so upset is because just watching the Jets all year, that felt like it was the case. It felt like Douglas and Saleh were told that they were safe, and they operated as, well, this stinks. We lost our guy. We'll try again next year, instead of trying to push and make the playoffs in an AFC that had a lot of mediocre teams.
Yeah, and winning does cure everything. And what my brain is going to is, how can he get to winning? And obviously, we haven't seen what this team is like without Aaron Rodgers yet. And that's what it comes down to. And I don't want to start speaking the same language as Robert Saleh, but I genuinely didn't expect the Jets to make any noise when Rodgers went down. I was hopeful that, okay, maybe we can make a Cinderella type of story. But it is true from the standpoint that Aaron Rodgers changes everything. And you even heard it in the article that Aaron Rodgers is basically the entire offense, where he would even a training camp would listen to a Hackett play call and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing my thing. And that's not new, by the way, right? That we knew that. We knew that everything about Aaron Rodgers was going to be, it's his system. It's not Hackett's system. So that's not new news for us. But do you think Aaron Rodgers has what it takes? And it's a big unknown, Matt. So I don't expect you to know this. No one knows this. And it really does come down to Aaron Rodgers, number one, staying healthy. And when he is healthy, does he have the ability to elevate the guys around him, holding them accountable? And third, no matter who they add this offseason or not, are the guys around Aaron Rodgers going to not do the pre-snap penalties, be on the same page with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like those are all things that are serious. And I was hopeful that the first year where Aaron Rodgers was going to be that learning experience where we make the playoffs, maybe get bounced in the playoffs. And then this year with the year 2 of Rodgers, everybody has chemistry with him. They understand the system. That's where we kind of make a deep Super Bowl run. But they had no experience with Aaron Rodgers with him going down in 4 snaps. So how much does Aaron Rodgers coming back this season give you confidence in this offense figuring it out? Because to be honest with us, we have no idea what to expect with A-Rod under center.
No, that's just the thing, right? You really do have no idea, and they are relying solely on Aaron Rodgers. Now, luckily, Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great. The tough thing is he didn't play at all this year. He played 4 freaking snaps, which still is just absolutely insane to say. And he's coming off an injury. I think he could do it. I think he could elevate this team to be definitely a playoff caliber team. Now, what is their ceiling becomes a question. Are they actually a Super Bowl contender, or is this a team that has, wild card aspirations that, gets bounced in the first round? I'm hoping they have a deep run in them. I don't want we did it. We finally ended the playoff streak. We went 9-8. We're the 7th seed, and we lost 34-15 in Kansas City in week 1 of the playoffs. I hope that's not what the story is for this team when they finally end their drought, but it's it's going to be heavily leaning on what Rodgers can do. And I just hope Douglas has a great free agency and draft class in him. I think they need some key additions on the offensive side of the ball to get them at least going towards league average.
Yeah, I mean, you and me both. I'm excited, and like it's so sad that we can't. I mean, we can. Let's not pretend we can here, but it just feels wrong to talk about the draft right now when this type of stuff came out today. It's like a bombshell day. It's like, oh shit, there's some deeper level stuff to this organization that we need to unravel, and that's why we were talking about it. But there's also, and it's not officially offseason yet, folks, by the way, because we do have Super Bowl coming up, and I do want to get your guys' thoughts in the chat and Matt's thoughts about the Super Bowl coming up because this is a big, big matchup. And let's start off with this, Matt. This is definitely not the Super Bowl that everybody wanted. I can tell you that right now. Everybody wanted the Detroit Lions, especially Jets fans. And I know that everyone's tired of Taylor Swift and the Chiefs, of course. But here we are. We got the 49ers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. So here are the Super Bowl odds presented by the proud sportsbook sponsor of Jets Media. They've been the proud sportsbook sponsor throughout the entire season throughout the offseason. So a huge shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the channel. If you guys want to get a 125% sign up bonus, that link is right now pinned in the chat or it's down below in the description. Make sure you guys check it out because this is where you want to put your money if you are considering it on the Super Bowl. So the early lines are in, Matt. And I got to be honest, I'm really upset with myself because I prematurely put money on this game and the odds shifted. So who are you picking in this game? Pretty much even, but the Chiefs are the 2-point underdogs. So where's your head at in terms of this Super Bowl matchup thus far?
Yeah, if you're telling me I could get plus money on the Chiefs, I am taking that. I am absolutely taking that. I don't know how you could bet against Patrick Mahomes. 49ers were my pick to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC for, since the beginning of the season. I don't want to talk about the AFC team because the Joe Burrow got hurt and who they beat in the AFC Championship game was the Jets. And obviously, it didn't go the way I anticipated the AFC going. But moral of the story, I think we see here a classic Patrick Mahomes game. And as with Brock Purdy, I just don't know if he has enough to keep pace with someone like Patrick Mahomes. So give me Mahomes and the Chiefs getting their third.
I agree. And I prematurely, Matt, I've been high on the Chiefs throughout the entire playoff run. So I can admit I won a lot of cash on them on BetUS. And instead of withdrawing it, I put it all on the Chiefs money line. And the money line for the Chiefs was at minus 105 when I did it. So I'm really upset.
That's annoying.
I thought I had to get it now because I thought I was going to do the opposite way. I thought the Chiefs was going to flip into like being the favorites. And then it flipped to be plus 110. It's okay, though. It is what it is. It's just bad. But if you guys want to join BetUS Sportsbook, definitely click that link to get your 125% sign-up bonus. And we're going to hear a quick from BetUS. Oh, doesn't seem like it's working. No worries. We don't need to do that. We'll hear from them shortly. Here here it is.
BetUS, America's
We're having
favorite.
some technical difficulties on the show today, folks. We really are. But it's okay. You know what, Matt? It's okay. I know my audio is a little choppy and my video is a little choppy, and we're gonna get through this technical difficulties together, Matt. How about that?
That is quite okay. Look, you're coming through. It happens to the best of us. You're a Long Island guy, so I don't know. I don't want to put words in, but are you an Optimum subscriber?
I'm not. I'm Verizon.
Oh, okay. So then never mind. I have my thoughts on Optimum here. Usually Verizon is the better one, but maybe we could get a sponsor. How about that? What if we get Verizon or Optimum to sponsor the Long Island guys here?
That would be ideal because I'm like fuzzy and my Wi-Fi isn't working right now. And this has never happened before. I just see the one little Wi-Fi bar in the top left. So my apologies for the technical difficulties here, folks. But luckily, I have Mr. Matt O'Leary with clean video and clean audio to help us out. Do you want to read this generous super chat, Matt, for me? Skywise29.
Absolutely. Skywise comes in, says the media biases is ridiculous. The Athletic writes from slant, especially regarding Aaron Rodgers. Look at past articles, is what he says. I get the frustration on this one, Richie. But if you watch the Jets this year, does anything that they said in the article, like, does any of that surprise you? Like, it felt like the excuses were all this team was doing. So I'm not surprised in the least, to be honest with you, but I don't know, man. I'm buying it.
I mean, no, yeah, this isn't new either from The Athletic. This is, like I said, the first article from them. Well, not the first, but the Zach Wilson article that they're referring to was from The Athletic. So this isn't shocking. And I don't think this is any, like, we're trying to cancel anybody. We're trying to ruin some. It's just people doing their job. And sometimes, unfortunately, people doing their job seems like it's attacking our team because that's what happens when we stink and we are a dumpster fire. But we are used to that at this point as Jets fans, which is definitely very frustrating. But Skywise29, thank you so much for the generous $20 super chat. Really do appreciate the kind donation, my friend. I really do appreciate it. And again, guys, sorry for the technical difficulties. This is definitely annoying to get through, but hey.
BetUS, America's favorite sports book, where you can bet on everything anytime. Sportsbook, live betting, and casino. To celebrate 30 years in business, we have the best bonuses in the industry. Get a 125% sign-up bonus and up to 30 risk-free bets. So what are you waiting for? Join now. BetUS, where the game begins.
Bang. There it is. Shout out to BetUS for being the official sportsbook sponsor of. All right, Matt, let's get deeper into this article, and then I want to talk to you about other offseason moves regarding the New York Jets. Now, there was something else in this. I mean, listen, there's a lot to unpack here, and it's driving me nuts. But when it comes to the distraction around the facility, like, is a report like this going to rumble within the players? Like, is this going to affect things where, like, say just any player, like a CJ Mosley who's a leader, or Quinnen Williams, or even a young player like Garrett Wilson, like, are they checking this article out? Are they reading this and just like, they're reading it and they obviously know what's going on behind closed doors? Like, is this going to impact the overall locker room this season when, like, them all coming back together, or just like knowing all these things that happen behind closed doors, and now they know that the public knows it, which I think is the most important piece about it, is like they all know the public is talking about the Jets in this negative way. Like, is that going to have any impact on this team heading into, the OTAs program when that starts over in April and May?
Yeah, I think how you ended that is the perfect way to say it, right? Like, they all know what's happening behind closed doors, but now that they know the public knows, now that they know we know, it's a little bit different. Like, I feel like they feel a little embarrassed by that. At least that's putting myself in their shoes. I'd feel embarrassed if, like, everyone knew some of the behind the scenes stuff that was going on. So, I don't know. I think for me here on this one, it's just something that there's always gonna be something with this team. I just hope that they are able to get on track and win some games, and winning cures all. I've said that so many times already on this show, but I believe it. I think winning really does cure all. So, that's really going to be the big key in this spot, I think, as we wait for Richie to get back. He's probably doing a quick refresh. He should reset the router. There we go. Oh, here he comes. Maybe. How are we looking, Rich?
Any better?
Oh,
I'm
no.
back.
No, definitely not better.
This has never happened. What the heck is going on, man? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Matt. And I'm sorry, chat, as well. You guys deserve better than this. But luckily, I'm Matt to hold it down while I refresh my browser, though.
You're
What did I
good.
miss when I was gone?
No,
Anything?
all I was saying is that I think it is something that's gonna impact this team, but I just hope a strong draft and free agency period gets the hype coming back. They win some games early next year and get the mojo going because winning cures all.
Winning does cure all. And is your level of optimism is that they are going to win, or you're just hoping? Like, I don't know where my level of optimism is for this season, bro. I'm trying to contain myself. I'm known as a more of an optimistic fan, but I'll be honest with you, Matt, it's hard right now. Very hard.
Yeah, if that I don't like to hear that, because if you who are like you're the eternal optimist, you always lean on the positive side. If you're like, dude, I don't know, that's got to be a really, really, really bad sign. And I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm like I lean negative. I try to stay as neutral as I can. Sometimes I lean positive, sometimes I lean negative on things, but I'm worried. I think there's a lot of talent. I'm excited to watch Aaron Rodgers next year. I'm worried, but the team does have potential.
And that potential is on defense. I mean, the potential we have on offense is kind of just like we have two players on offense to be excited about, and then a couple solid players in Ruckert and Joe Tippmann and some pieces here. And listen, my level of optimism is only wearing just because of this type of stuff. Like when it comes to the personnel and the team, especially in the defense, like I'm someone that is such a big believer in this defense, where we just need to figure it out on offense. Like we just need to get to below average, and we're in the playoffs. So that's the biggest thing. And I think, did I just fix my video?
This is the clearest you've been all stream.
Well, guess what? I found out what the problem was. My laptop was dying. Didn't think about it. Plugged it in. It just needed some power supply, baby. We're back. We're back. We needed some power supply. Unless I'm jinxing it. Am I jinxing it?
So far,
No,
so good.
All right. Well, the little icon's gone. Guys, we're back. Your boy is no longer in the... I definitely jinxed it. I just saw the icon up, and we're back to fuzziness. Okay. Well, we're going to continue the show, though, regardless. So, going back to the positive and the negatives of this team in terms of our anticipation for the team, I first want to ask everybody in the chat, where's your expectations with this franchise? Where are you expecting this team to go? And I know that we have a whole offseason to head to see where they go in the NFL draft before we do that, but I'm curious to hear the chat's perspective on it as we pivot into some other things that I initially wanted to get Mr. Matt O'Leary on here in the first place. Let's talk Senior Bowl. Let's talk about the Jets draft right here, because we all saw the reports yesterday. Fuaga is someone that Joe Douglas has had a crush on for a while. Rich Cimini came out on Twitter and let us know about it, and he's dominating at the Senior Bowl, and people have been comparing him to guys like AVT. He's a solid right tackle, and he is, a top-tier tackle in this draft, one of the 3 top-tier tackles that I've been really excited about for the Jets potentially to get. So what's your overall thoughts of Talisi Fuaga as an offensive tackle? Do you think that if he's at number 10 and he's available, he's the pick, or does it matter about what other offensive tackle is available at that spot at number 10? Or maybe they don't even go offensive tackle at 10. Maybe they go Bowers. Maybe they go a weapon. I always hate to talk about the draft. I mean, no, I'll take that back. It's hard to talk about the draft before free agency for me, just because it's like the free agency is going to tell you everything about where they're going in the draft. That's when we plug in the holes, and then we know where the glaring hole is entering the NFL draft. So where's your head at with these the number 10th overall pick with all the buzz that we've heard this week coming out of the Senior Bowl?
You bring up such a good point with the free agency period, because right now we have no idea. You have no idea. I think they're going to go offensive line, right? But who knows? Maybe they sign 2 tackles in free agency, and then you go, oh, holy shit! Like they really could take Bowers at pick 10 now, or maybe they want to take Rome Madunes, the wide receiver. Like we have no idea. But if I had to guess, Fuaga, there's a lot of steam there, and Daniel Jeremiah, who's very close with Joe Douglas, mocked him to the Jets, and then you had the Cimini report yesterday. I really like him a lot. He reminds me a ton of Elijah Vera Tucker. He's a mauler in the run game. He's probably someone who's going to end up strictly being a right tackle, but that's not enough to get me to say I don't want to draft him, because the Jets need 2 tackles, and shoring up the right side of the offensive line would be really, really clutch for this team. So I like him enough to take him at 10. If Olu Fashanu is still there, I would take him over Fuaga because he's more the natural left tackle and he's a better pass protector. But that doesn't mean I feel like you're settling with Fuaga. I think he would be a quality top 10 pick.
And what's your level of expectation of Mekhi Becton returning or not? Do you think it's a foregone conclusion he's walking, like he's not coming back, or do you think there is a chance that the Jets want to bring him back on a 1-year deal or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's over for Mekhi Becton, which that's sad. I was, excited when they drafted him and he had a good rookie year and felt bad with the injuries. But unfortunately, this past year, he stayed mostly healthy, but he was pretty ineffective. I think he's going to get a 1-year deal somewhere else. But with his comments on Keith Carter and just how things ended this year, it kind of feels like they're just ready to go a different direction. And it's probably best for both sides to, just work on go in a different direction. I don't think he's a long-term answer for the Jets, and he kind of needs a fresh start somewhere else. So I could see someone give him a 1-year prove it deal, but I don't think it's with the Jets.
And everybody's been talking about, not only the Jets can add offensive tackles in the draft, but also free agency. Which offensive tackles do you think the Jets should target in free agency or in the trade market leading up to the draft? Because obviously we can't rely on one rookie with a 10th overall pick to fix the offensive line here. And obviously we also have a question mark. Are the Jets moving on from Tomlinson? AVT is going to apparently find his home and stay there. So how do you see this offensive line shaking up in this offseason, and who do you have your eyes on in terms of targets on the offensive line in particular outside of the draft, more in terms of the free agency and trade market?
So I don't really, and this is really bad because where the Jets are, but I don't love the tackle free agents this year. More so the bigger name guys. I just think there's some red flags with each one of them. Like Jonah Williams, for example, is a name that gets brought up a lot. He's a former first-round pick, but he's really struggled, I think, with penalties. He's been very inconsistent and up and down so far in his first 3-4 years in the league. Then you have Tyron Smith with Dallas. Great when healthy. Gets injured a lot and is now 33 years old. I don't know if you want to pay him big money. Trent Brown is someone who had one really good year with New England and then kind of injuries and was just okay the last couple of years. And I think he's going to get a big contract. I actually like Onwenu better from the Patriots of the two, Onwenu and Brown. I think Brown's the bigger name, but Onwenu can play either guard or tackle. So I think that's interesting. And the Raiders tackle, Illuminor, who's a right tackle, really just started for them the last 2 years, but I thought had a really solid season there. So I think they would be a little bit cheaper and probably in that same boat talent-wise. Like, I don't know if they're that much worse than a Trent Brown or Jonah Williams, but I don't think they're going to get the same money that those guys do.
So, Laken Tomlinson, is he coming back next year?
I really go back and forth on this one a lot, Richie, because I think it's really, really challenging to fix 3 holes on the offensive line, right? Because then at that point, you're just bringing back Tippmann and AVT. But at the same time, if you're telling me that you can cut him and free up $8 million, can they not find someone better with that same $8 million? Like, I think they could absolutely upgrade it. I like some of the guards. Graham Glasgow from the Lions is a free agent. Zeitler's a big name free agent. I think he's probably going to end up being out of their range price wise, but Ezra Cleveland is another name who's a free agent on the interior. I think it's probably easier for you to find a guard in free agency than it is a tackle. So if they want to go that route, end up signing 2 guards in free agency, cutting Laken Tomlinson, have AVT play one of the tackle spots and draft an offensive tackle in the first round, I think that would go a long way to fixing the line. So maybe that's the route.
Man, do the Jets have some tough decisions and some intriguing decisions to make on the offensive line. We got my boy James in the chat with a $20 super chat. Thank you, James. We appreciate you, brother. One of the all-time callers of the Jets Media podcast throughout the season. Boys, first off, the players are aware. Guys, it always impacts this team. We make it worse. But what are we going to do if you're good, You block the noise out. That's an NY athlete, but you can't shoot down now. Good look, Richie. Well, James, what a super chat. You broke it down pretty damn well, my friend. And yes, this does impact the team, like you say, but they got to figure out a way to block the noise out. And somebody, shout out to Julian if you're watching, somebody DM me, Matt, the exact video that Robert Saleh got the whole crow analogy from.
Really?
I don't know if you ever saw it, but it
No.
definitely, I felt like I was watching Robert Saleh's speech. So someone sent it to me and said, like, I found where Robert Saleh got the crow speech from. And I watched it and I was like laughing. And by the way, the video is pretty cool. And I thought the account that made it's pretty cool. But I was just like, damn. I mean, when Saleh said that, I'm not going to lie. I thought like, I'm like, dude, where's Saleh's pulling these in? It's from within. It wasn't. Not a big deal. But that's just a little analogy that I like to bring up because it is true, right? I like that Saleh brought that analogy up because the Jets got to figure out to block out the noise. And James, big time shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. I don't know if you saw it, Matt, but Sauce Gardner was on the Stephen A. Smith podcast. And I thought that the last thing that Sauce said is that they're going to be like silent assassins, or I forgot the exact word he used, something along the lines of they want to work in the shadows and not talk as much. They felt like he admitted that the Jets got caught up in the hype last year. And there's a lot of eyes on them, Hard Knocks, and like all the just negativity around it. And of course, like Aaron Rodgers. So like, what's your thoughts of Aaron Rodgers saying, Sauce Gardner saying that they kind of want to take a step back and not be in the public eye as much and let the, actions speak louder than words? Because I feel like that's exactly what I want from this team. And that's also exactly what I want from like the conception of the perception of this team around the league in terms of the media. Like, I don't want any media to be excited about the Jets. I want them to be counting us out. That's where we're more comfortable. Like, right, last year it didn't feel right. Didn't feel right that we had this analyst saying the Jets are Super Bowl contenders, even though we're all like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. Right. It didn't happen. Okay. So what's your thoughts of Sauce Gardner saying that on the Stephen A. Smith podcast?
Yeah, I really hope that's what they do, right, going into this year. I don't know if humbled's the right word, but I think they were taken back a little bit this year. Like, they were riding high after getting Aaron Rodgers, and we all were, and deservedly so. We've watched garbage quarterback play year after year for this team, and it felt like, they were being held back by that position in 2022. We knew how good the defense was. But I think this was a little bit of a wake-up call for them, and I hope that it's something that everyone can learn from. Maybe, if we can positive spin zone it, I know you love a positive spin. Maybe they're using this as a learning experience. And like, we can't make these same mistakes again going into next year. And hopefully they leave it in 2023.
You got that right. I mean, you got to get through some negativity of times in order to learn. And that's kind of how I always approach life. And I try to translate that as much as I can to the Jets. But I feel like their experience of being in the public eye and now reverting back into their shadows could be the benefit of the doubt here. Now, speaking of some positivity, let's talk about something positive. How about that? Jermaine Johnson named to the Pro Bowl as a reserve, filling in for Khalil Mack. I think that deserves to be celebrated because now we have, the 4 of those draft picks in the first, second round in 2022. They all have their own accolades, right? Sauce Gardner, back-to-back first-team All-Pros. Garrett Wilson, back-to-back 1,000-yard season and Offensive Rookie of the Year. Breece Hall should have been at least a Comeback Player of the Year finalist, but he's second in the NFL behind Christian McCaffrey in all-purpose yards amongst running backs. And now we have Jermaine Johnson being a Pro Bowler in his second season. So what's your thoughts of our guy JJ going to the Pro Bowl games representing the Jets with Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner?
I'm happy for him. He deserves it. I really loved what we saw from him in year 2. Very quiet rookie season. There were a couple nice moments, though. He had the big play in the Buffalo game last year in the upset win. And then this year, it feels like he really hits his stride. And, I'm excited for him. He was kind of the forgotten guy of that draft class, I thought, when you had, Breece Hall playing at such a high level right away. And then Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Sauce Gardner, Defensive Rookie of the Year. It felt like Jermaine was the forgotten one, but he's lived up to the billing of a first-round pick. He really improved in year 2, and I think he's going to get even more playing time this upcoming year, and just be a consistent, solid guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a huge 15 to 20 sack a year guy, but I think he's just going to be steady, somewhere between 7 to 12 sacks, really good against the run, and someone you really want on your football team.
I got into a little debate on my show yesterday with some of my buddies in the chat, or my longtime listeners, about this specific topic, and I want to get your thoughts of it. Where right now, just give me your initial reaction of this specific player. What's your thoughts of Will McDonald and that draft pick last year? Are you still salty about it? Do you think it was a bad pick?
So this is a very nuanced conversation. Like, I don't think it's so easy to be like, oh my God, I hate Will McDonald. Because I don't feel that way. That's not the pick that I would have made. Just to be completely honest with you, I don't think I would have taken Will McDonald there. With that being said, I don't think we know anything about him. I don't think we could say that he's, going to be this great superstar. Like, I'm not comfortable enough saying, okay, I'm ready to let Bryce Huff walk because of what Will McDonald showed me. But at the same time, I'm not ruling him out for taking a similar year 2 leap that we saw Jermaine Johnson do. So I'm just kind of waiting it out with him. Again, I'm not going to make a declarative statement that he's the guy or he's not the guy. We just frankly did not see enough in year 1 to know that. I would not have drafted that position in that spot last year, but that's not to say that he can't develop and be a really good player for this team.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, basically, my stance on it is simple. It's way too premature to count it out. And you can question it, but if you think the draft pick is bad, like, could it be? 100%. But I personally think it's so unfair, and I feel like us as a Jets fan base are a little spoiled, and we're used to rookies coming out on the scene and plugging in and being elite immediately, right? I feel like we're a little spoiled with that, and we expect Will McDonald to get all this playing time as a rookie, which he didn't do. And, of course, it was not a position of need. In my opinion, the philosophy, whether it's right or wrong, this is the philosophy around that pick, is they drafted a premier position that they're best at. Their best position is defensive line and edge. And it seems like the Jets want to keep that their best position. And the way they did that was a long-term pick. Now, the counter argument is, why would you do that when we're in a win-now window with Aaron Rodgers? Maybe they just foreseed Bryce Huff. And listen, we could still retain Bryce Huff, and maybe that draft pick will look a little more questionable. But if Bryce Huff walks, and Carl Lawson's walking, by the way, which we're all okay with because he's obviously not the same player that he once was, all of a sudden, this defensive edge group is paper thin. I mean, we're talking about just JFM and Jermaine Johnson without Will McDonald. So that's the only thing that's making easing my pain into it. And yes, could we have gone wide receiver? Offensive tackle at that spot seems be a little bit more of a glaring need, but it seemed like the Jets want to double down on what they're best at, and we can all agree here that the Jets defense, what makes them so good is the pass rush. And now all of a sudden we're spoiled with pass rushers when, don't forget, 3 or 4 years ago, Matt, every single offseason we're screaming which pass rusher are we getting.
Yeah. No, that's fair, right? Like, for so long, Jet fans complained about not having enough at edge. So I complain with a little bit of, that awareness. I'm not going to pound the table and say it was the worst decision ever. I hate the Will McDonald pick and I hate him. Like, I'm not there. But you're right. Like, I'm glad that it was at an important position like edge. If it was, them doubling down on a better example, right? In 2017, they drafted Jamal Adams and Marcus May with their first 2 picks, and safety was not safety's not a premium position. So them doubling down on that, little different. So you're right to bring up that it's an important part.
Yeah, and I just feel like that is something that the New York Jets have done so well at. Is there it's so crazy, Matt, that the defensive coaching staff is so good, beyond Jeff Ulbrich, and shout out to Ulbrich for representing the Jets down in Senior Bowl right now. But I feel like all the development that we've seen on the Jets defensive coaching staff from the defensive, I have my point is I have so much trust in the development of the players on that side of the ball. And every single time Joe Douglas makes an acquisition on defense, they thrive. Every time he makes an acquisition on offense, they sink. And I think that's a lot to do with the coaching. And you talk about culture. The culture is beautiful on defense. The culture is terrible on offense. There's no set standards. There's no continuity. There's no just a lot of things there. So I just got to give the defensive coaching staff their flowers. We also got some news yesterday. about the Jets bringing in some new offensive coaching staff. And I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts of that in the live chat and overall Matt's thoughts as well. So we're going to get into that right after this. As you all know, we've had a proud sponsor of Jets Media for quite some time now, and they happen to be Manta Sleep. Now, if you guys want to use my promo code JETS, you will get a 10% discount code. That link is down below in the description. Now, you might be wondering, what is Manta Sleep? If you guys have any struggles with sleeping, I cannot highly recommend more the Manta Sleep Pro Mask. Now, I've been using this since they became sponsors of the channel months ago, and I literally wear this exact sleep mask every single night before sleep. Again, guys, this is what you got to invest in if you're having any difficulty with sleep. It is the most advanced sleep mask on the market, and I promise you, you will not regret getting your sleep mask. It absolutely takes out the light, 100% blackout, zero eye pressure technology. So when you put it on, you can open your eyes. But really, my favorite part about it is it completely turns out the light. So even if you want to put it on for a midday nap, or even you don't even want to take a rest, you just want to put the sleep mask on, even meditate. It's a really mindful practice, and I cannot recommend them more to you guys. They have a lot of different masks on their website. This happens to be the Pro Mask, which I personally recommend. It's what I use. But don't forget, use that link down below in the description, 10% off discount code. They have a Bluetooth mask if you want to listen to music. They got a silk mask. They got ones for kids. They got a weighted mask. They got a cool mask. Definitely check out their website. Can I recommend them more? Thank you, Manta Sleep, for being a proud sponsor of Jets Media. Shout out to Manta Sleep, baby. Matt, your overall thoughts of bringing back Shawn Jefferson, because he was with the Jets and he's back. We saw that news yesterday from Justina Anderson. What's your initial reaction on that?
Yeah, I am excited for him to come back. I think that they could use an upgrade at some of the positional coaches. Running back was one of them. They made a switch. Wide receivers, another one, and they made a switch. I wish they would do offensive line next. I don't know if they're going to do it, but this is someone who is much more experienced than Azani, who is the wide receiver coach that he replaced. Worked with Calvin Johnson in Detroit. Was here with the New York Jets in 19 and 20, which not the best of times, but he's just a more experienced wide receiver coach, which I like that. I like going the more experienced route with this roster.
Yeah, and I feel like the Jets are, obviously adding a lot of different pieces to this offensive coaching staff. Dews was another guy. We have a brand new running backs coach as well that I feel like, is there something about the Tennessee Titans coaching tree that the Jets love? I mean, Keith Carter isn't really doing anything. Like, is there anything with the new running backs coach and Dews that really gets you excited besides him having Derrick Henry there? Like, does that move the needle for you, or do you feel like there should still be more offensive coaching staff help looming?
I would still do more. I do think that Dews and Saleh work together at Central Michigan. So there's that connection, but it is funny that it's another Tennessee guy from, you bring in two last year and now you add a third, but Henry did kind of really break out under him. His first 2 years in the league, he started a little bit on the slower side in 16 and 17. And then in 2018 through 2022 was some of his best years. I don't know if there's a connection there, but, again, just a more experienced position coach. Taylor Embry was a wide receiver, and he hadn't coached running backs before getting this job. So, yeah, I don't really get that. I didn't understand that hire. That was bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not something that's going to move the needle for me. But hey, there's a lot more things to be excited for with this Jets, even though today was not a really great day for the organization, just with that report. Definitely want to get your guys' thoughts in the comment section after we wrap up the show, to hear everything down below in the comment section. And we're going to wrap up here, and just want to say a gigantic thank you, Mr. Matt O'Leary, for joining the show today. And for the people that are not aware, there is a weekly show that me and Matt are a part of, and that's on the AFC's Roundtable. It's titled Jets Roundtable. If you not check out last week's episode, definitely do it, because we had Matt and Ryan in the studio, and we had Jake Asman there virtually as well. Tomorrow, it's going to be Matt O'Leary, Ryan, and Jake Asman together on it. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be available tomorrow. So definitely go check that out. The Jets Roundtable is live on Thursdays at 1 p.m. EST. Really exciting stuff happening over there on that channel. And yeah, Matt, I really do appreciate you hopping on here. Always appreciate your analysis and your takes on the Jets. Again, sorry about the timing of it, because I did not want to talk about this in terms of like the Jets. I want to really more focus on the draft and the coaching staff stuff, which we did, but we had that started off the show with what's going on today. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said at the start, it's never a dull day. We always got something going on. Appreciate you having me on, Richie. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure indeed. Shout out to Matt O'Leary. Everyone go subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and we're out of here, everybody.